Hello.
What's up?
We're back.
Welcome
back.
to the Tailgate.
That's right.
For October 15th, 2024.
Yeah, we get to talk about some upsets and some hot seats, mid-season hot seats,
Mid-season Heismans.
mid-season Heismans, and then
We'll go over week 8, go over week 7, even though I don't want to. Want to pretend like it didn't happen.
Feel better? The teams start with just the big O, man.
What are you doing? What were you
Big O. Just the big O. My
Stop,
bad.
Dennis.
The camera's down here.
Stop.
Yep. That's
And
what we're back in town.
All right, go. We'll see you in a minute. We're going to talk to Dennis.
All right, now we're back. All right, yep. So as Christopher was saying before the intro, the boys are back in town. Yes, yep,
We are.
We are back in town. I
Michael's
guess
not back in Nashville.
I'm not back in. Well, no, I'm in where I live now, which for the IRS, I don't think you know where I live. That's not a threat.
The big O is what Dennis was saying.
The big O, the
Yeah.
big what? The big O. The Ohio State.
Yeah, shut up.
Yeah. I mean, hey, listen.
We can't say it this week.
No, so we'll start off our week 7 upsets, or kind of going back over some of our picks or whatnot. I originally picked Oklahoma to upset Texas. That very much happened in the first quarter.
The first 3 points.
and then Texas decided just to turn on the afterburners and leave Oklahoma in the dust. Oklahoma fan base is having a meltdown currently, rightfully so. So I guess they're really upset about losing Levy. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it is what it is. So that was my upset didn't come true, so I'm sad about that. Drats.
Dennis, how'd your upset go?
Yeah. Who did you pick last week?
I mean, like Michael was saying, I was actually, if you saw the first half of the game, I was right to what I was saying. Like, hey, it's gonna be a blowout. It's gonna be definitely one-sided, and I was right. Going into halftime, USC was up 20-6, and Lincoln Riley kept coaching the second half, and a loss happened. So, and part of me is
he also coached overtime.
No, he didn't. Okay, so he didn't coach the 3 minute, like the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter. He stopped coaching the rest of the game. The fact that they had a chance to they had just under 3 minutes left with the ball, and the fact that he's just like, hey, I'm gonna stay right around the 50. I'm not gonna even try to go for a field goal. I'm just gonna run it a few times and basically just run out the clock. And his answer to that was to say, like, I didn't want to leave any time for Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which I don't know how that makes any sense. Like, I get it. You don't want to leave it a long time, but at least try to get within field goal range before you start doing that. For an offensive coordinator who's supposed to be a great, brilliant offensive mind, I feel like that's such a, like,
it's a horrible move.
Lapse of judgment in a massive way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're running the ball. It's like you run the ball in the last second when you need to throw a pass into the end zone to win a game. It's just like one of those hiccups.
Mm-hmm.
But Penn State ended up coming back second half, and Luke ended up being right for the second half. For me, is the fact that, like, I was upset now.
Yep,
things happened. Penn State, like I said, Penn State won 33-30. I feel like Allard kind of actually, even though he threw 3 picks to USC, he definitely, I feel like, showed just more or less resilience. The fact that he was able to still be in the game and be able to bring his team back and just kind of finish off.
Sure.
Yeah. I was watching that game, and like he had thrown 2 interceptions, and I was sitting here just going, oh, it's good old Allard. This is what he does. This is what, and then they pull up a stat that it's like, interceptions in his career, 3 interceptions today, 2. And I was like, I guess it's not like he's just that weird, like anomaly of a quarterback where you're going, he just doesn't seem like when he has a bad game, he doesn't seem like he's a good quarterback. And then you see these stats where you're like, oh, I guess he kind of is.
Guess he's
Okay.
Yeah.
Guess he's okay. But
I mean, he was targeting the tight end, Tyler Warren, the entire game. I mean, the guy finished with 17 catches.
And USC was leaving him open in the second half. That's what was crazy. There was one of those drives, he was wide open 3 times.
I don't know what happened there. Like I know, like they finally started covering him towards like the last like 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. I'm like, well, it'll take you guys a quarter and a half. By then, the damage has already been done. Like,
I heard that their defensive coordinator got sick at halftime, and they called up Grinch to come back in.
No, if that actually happened, the score would have been like 63-30.
There would have
not 33-30.
Yeah,
it's OT. Grinch is that bad. He'll have a team just scoring 60 points by halftime.
Yeah. Well, true. Speaking of being upset, I picked Ohio State and Oregon. And
I'm pretty happy now. I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, that's okay. You can be happy. That's the fun thing about football. You can be happy, and you can. Yeah, I'm not gonna say that. But no, I think it was definitely an interesting game. You talked about running up the middle with 6 seconds to go, leaving a timeout on the board. It was not a good look for Ohio State, especially that last drive. It was a fun game. You look back, Oregon was playing without their top defensive tackle or defensive lineman, the guy who was leading the team in sacks. One of their wide receivers got kicked out of the game early on for spitting at one of the defensive backs. Ohio State lost 2 offensive linemen. One of them I'm hearing is season ending. So that's kind of scary going forward, with that being one of our biggest question marks, kind of what that's going to look like going forward. But then you had our defensive back coming back, Burke, who got burned by Evan Stewart multiple times. Did not look like he was a senior. Oregon, give him credit, like especially the last couple plays, they ran the clock down like they needed to in that last drive. They got that field goal to go up. They're up by 1, and then the last couple plays for Ohio State, I think one of the things I was thinking about is you look at Oregon. Obviously, we see both of the teams have talent. They're both what we thought what they were at the beginning. They're good teams. They're talented teams. Oregon, looking like, I mean, they honestly look like that. I mean, that's what they look like. I hope not, but we'll see. I hope we get to face them in the rematch. I hope we get to face them. I think that would be only fitting. But the last couple plays, you saw, I think, Oregon having some of those close games earlier on, the close games against Boise State, where they have just a little bit more of that mental, that psychological, like, hey, we're down, but that's okay. And Ohio State hadn't had that. They had not been pressed. They hadn't been pushed this year. But that last drive, you look at the offensive pass interference by JJ Smith, which I think it was a soft call. They had been playing rough all game.
Sure.
That's one. Back in my day, we said that's the defensive back needs to hit the weight room. But you can't leave those kind of calls up to the ref. That's not something like you can't do that. And then Will Howard deciding to run, how you don't, with 6 seconds left in a timeout, how you don't know, hey, you got 6 seconds. This ball needs to be out of your hands in 3 seconds, and you need to call a timeout. I don't understand.
If he was just going to run the ball, that's fine. Luckily, in college, you just slide immediately. You're automatically down. You don't have to be touched, so you can call a timeout there. So you didn't even have to throw the ball to get what he needs to do.
Right. Yeah. Well, and,
Yeah.
and yeah, and he didn't have to. He didn't have to. You're right, but it's again, he didn't start running till 3 seconds. Like he took 3 seconds off the clock and then started running. And at that point, I mean, we talked about Nico running out of bounds.
Uh-huh.
To end the game. This was, in my opinion, worse. Like it just was bad. Like you made somewhat of a play, but maybe not bad. It was the same.
Well, you have a senior who has a lot of game experience. Should
Yes.
If you bring up Nico thing, Nico running out of bounds looks identical to Milton running out of bounds against Ole Miss in 2021.
There you go.
Heupel basically said that what Milton did was inexcusable with his veteran stat. Like he had already been playing for years versus Nico. This is his first year. He's like, sorry, we have to give him a little bit of grace. And I'm like, no, I totally can understand some of that, but yeah, it still stings. It doesn't change the fact that it still stings.
Oh, yeah.
Now, what are your thoughts on Dan Lanning saying that the 12th player on the field was a calculated move, intentional to make you guys waste more time?
I think that he's full of it, and that's a really cool thing. I think that's a really cool thing to say to make it look like, hey, look how good I am at my job.
I thought this was true.
But it worked out, and it did exactly what that was a big thing. I think it took 4 or 5 seconds off the clock, which then led to Will Howard sliding to end the game. So I mean, the outcome was perfect for him. I don't know that I believe that it was a calculated move.
Sure.
There was a little bit of confusion on the sidelines when they're doing it, when they were showing kind of that side view. There was a lot of confusion, and I just don't, unless Dan Lanning just like literally pushed his player out on the field and the guy was going, I don't know what's going on. And I just don't, I mean, if it was Kirby Smart pushing his player on the field, well, he wouldn't push his player. He'd push the other team.
He pushed the other team's
but I think that's, hey, you know what? He can take credit for it. He just won.
Sure.
I think the biggest game of his career, probably.
At this point, yes.
So he can take credit for it. I don't think that I really don't believe that he, that's not something that I think he thinks of like right then to just go, oh, let's throw a 12th player out there.
In different, like it's been said that they've actually practiced that for specific situations just in case. Now, obviously, it's a rare, extremely rare situation that things like that could happen. But I also wonder if any of his players would actually admit to that too.
Sure. I don't know that the players would ever admit to it, but the thing is they might now because he's taking credit for it.
Right.
As for the other upsets this weekend, there weren't as many. There weren't as many other ones. It depends on what side of the fence you're on, I guess. This brings me to like Chris, what you just asked. That brings me to one of the upsets. It depends on which side of the fence you're on. But Vandy went to Kentucky and beat Kentucky at Kentucky for the second time back to back at home at Kentucky since 92 and 94, which is insane. Yeah. Vandy again has another really good win. That was a solid win by Vandy at Kentucky against an SEC opponent who beat a top 10 team earlier this year. Why aren't they ranked? Yeah. Why is Michigan ranked? And they have two worse losses. Their wins are not better than Vandy's wins by any stretch of the imagination. No. I get why Army and Navy are ranked. It makes sense. They're actually doing relatively well. They have a surprisingly good offense in comparison to Michigan. But that's
more efficient.
Using Michigan as a measuring pole is not the best.
Right. Well, I know you appreciate it.
Yeah.
But it's because they're right there at the edge of the top 25. And it for me just feels like I think right now Vandy's 26th. I'm like, no, just swap them with Michigan. There's the
big thing is with Army and Navy, and yes, and Chris, we'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah. Future
But future episode when they beat them in a couple weeks. But Army Navy, like again, if you're going by, they go by strength of schedule, they go by, kind of the eye test. How is Vandy beating at the time the number 1 ranked Alabama team? And again, we talked about this. They didn't just like luck into a win. Alabama didn't just hand over the game. Vandy beat them. They beat them in every aspect of the game. How is that quality of a win not deserving of getting them into the top 25? It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it is kind of cool. Army and Navy both being ranked since the first time since the 1960s.
Sure.
Like, that's pretty cool. But I don't care about cool. I just want it to be
you want it to make sense. I mean, there was a lot of movement with the AP poll this week that didn't make as much sense. I am 100. I'll say this as a Tennessee fan. I am 100% okay with Tennessee dropping out of the top 10. But I also think that Alabama, who struggled worse against a non-rival at home, should have probably also dropped some points. Like, the fact that they stayed right at 7 is weird to me. And if you look at the stats of the if you look at the kind of the stats of the record, strength of record or whatnot of USC and Florida, about the same. Florida has lost to 2 top 25 teams. USC has lost to it, like going into the game with Penn State, had lost to two top 25 teams. And no, I'm sorry, they lost to 1 top 25 team, and then Minnesota. And then Penn State goes down to the wire with USC in overtime, and it only beats them by 3 points, by a field goal, and they go up a place. But Tennessee, who was playing a rival, which again, USC, Penn State, not a rival, Alabama, South Carolina, not rivals. Tennessee and Florida playing a rival, Tennessee or Florida, who has had Tennessee's number for 20 years. This was the first time they went into overtime against Florida since 1998. They won. They didn't just kick a field goal to win the game, even though that's all they needed to do. They actually went and got a touchdown. They just drove down they just went down the 25 yards or whatever and got the touchdown, because they're just like, you know what? I'm not saying it was a pretty game, because it wasn't. It was an ugly game. Sure. But I expect that game to be ugly. It always is. It's always an ugly game. And so I'm just like, I'm fine with Tennessee dropping out of that, because I think right now their offense looks terrible. And people need to figure themselves out, and hopefully that's a wake-up call. But I also think that there just needs to be some equilibrium to how they're handling some of the weighted rank.
There is not a lot of sense made in it when you start looking at kind of the, like you said, Alabama 2 weeks and like losing to an unranked Vanderbilt, and then going down to the wire and barely beating an unranked South Carolina unranked.
No, they're unranked.
Yeah. So, but then almost losing to them and staying put, and then you've got Ohio State, who is a 2 playing a 3, losing to a 3 by 1, and then dropping to 5, and having an in-conference Penn State, like you said, who beats USC in overtime, coming back from 24. Like, good on them for doing that. Like, that's hard to do. Coming back from 24 is hard to do. There's just there's a lot of things that happened that didn't make a lot of sense. I think you flip Ohio State and Oregon. Like, I think Oregon becomes 2, Ohio State's 3. If you want to pull Georgia up there, like they did, I can see that. But dropping to 5 didn't make a lot of sense. But hey, it's the AP.
Yeah, they
don't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, and it really doesn't actually matter. The other upset was LSU pulling an awesome upset against the Ole Miss and the lame Kiffin. Essentially, I think Ole Miss is officially on true fraud, not just fraud watch or anything like that. They're straight up fraud alert. Like they are frauds.
Yes.
They play anybody with a pulse on offense. They don't know what to do, and they play anybody with a pulse on defense. They're also just don't know what to do. So
the offense knows what to do if they play
well,
somebody. You go down.
they both actually know what
You pretend to be hurt.
Yeah, the Kiffin timeout, really. Yeah. So
It's quite effective apparently.
Whoever's playing
It helps them win games. When they don't do it, they lose. So
Yep.
apparently it's very effective.
Yep.
Well, and now that they've gotten called out about it, we'll see. Like they start using it too much more. I think there's going to be some looking into.
So they released their statement back on Friday, and then they still did it a bunch in the LSU game. So
Right.
like it's clear that they don't care, and
Right.
the reason is Lane Kiffin doesn't care because a couple different things, and that leads us kind of into our hot seat conversations. But one of them is he doesn't care because he's done it for a long time, and no one's ever said anything about it. Well, people have said stuff about it, but no one's ever held him accountable.
There's never been repercussions.
Yeah. The other thing is he doesn't care because at the end of the day, he may not be at Ole Miss by the end of the year. Leads us into our hot seat conversations. Just mid-season hot seat. Obviously, Billy Napier is probably the hottest of hot seats out of everybody. And I mean,
I'm surprised the fans aren't burning his seat right now.
Well,
Like,
if they could, I think
effigy, they probably are.
Sure. I mean, the level of not just apathy, but like just sheer I don't even know what the right word is, but like just listening to some of them just break down. They're just like, we're done. We just don't understand. We're tired of this guy. Get rid of him, please. And it just warms my soul as a Tennessee fan.
You're sitting by that hot seat like,
yeah, this is nice.
it's so nice and warm.
Yeah, Tennessee's dealt with enough hot seats over the past 15 years. Our head coach is definitely nowhere close to one. But so Lane Kiffin being potentially the number one hire at Florida is probably causing some of the issues that he's having at Ole Miss right now. But at the same time, it's also potentially going to cause the issue of him not really engaging with trying to build any kind of
Rapport.
legacy. Yeah.
Or legacy. I get where you're going.
Yeah. He's not trying to build a legacy there because he's Christopher, tell us more how you feel about Lane Kiffin there, Christopher. Anyways, yeah. So I mean, but what other coaches that may have been on the hot seat in the beginning of the season are now probably not on the hot seat, or it doesn't seem like they are, or ones that weren't, that we didn't think were going to be on the hot seat, are now you guys think on the hot seat?
So I'll say for me, I said Clark Lee from Vanderbilt was one of those like kind of on the hot seat. He hadn't done very well, and Vanderbilt kind of is starting to expect. And at this point, he beat Bama.
Yeah,
and
they don't care.
That buys him 3 years.
They probably, yeah.
I mean, he is like the Nick Saban of Vanderbilt football right now. So they are, so Clark Lee is not on the hot seat anymore. And I'll kind of go the opposite way. One of the guys that I defended and said shouldn't be on the hot seat was Ryan Day. And I would say that he probably, that seat is getting pretty warm. We always talk about kind of the loudest, the loudest wheel gets the grease. The Ohio State collective, the Ohio State fan base, the Ryan Day haters are loud and proud right now. And they are just, this is 100% proof that, he can't win the big game. Here we go, another top 5 team, and he loses. And, the interesting thing was somebody in one of the Twitter X conversations that I was in, somebody said, so if he beats Penn State in a few weeks, does he get credit for that top 5 win? And everybody essentially was like, well, no, because Penn State's not a top 5 team.
They're not a legit top 5 team.
They're not. And I 100% agree with you. but they're going to find everything against any win he gets at this point. So I think that especially with the Ohio State fan base, Ryan Day is on the hot seat. I still don't think that he necessarily should be. I think we need to play. Obviously, we'll play the season out. He's not going to get fired anytime soon, but he's not making a case for himself, and his failure to finish games, his failure to have his team prepared to finish games is very concerning. So,
yeah. No, I totally get you. I mean, the thing is, unfortunately, even if he beats Michigan this year, the problem is that they're going to be like, well, it's the weakest Michigan team is that they've been for like 5 years. So, I'm just like, I get it. Like, and that's why I said like early on, I'm like, he has to get to the Natty. Because he needs to win in the big games, and he's unfortunately had a lot of problems there.
If you look at the roster, nobody's going to like fight anybody on saying that, hey, your Ohio State's roster should be winning the Natty. Like, it's not like, oh, they have enough to win the Natty. It's like, no, you should be winning it. And that's the argument that everybody can make about the roster. So the fact that if you don't win and you have the roster to prove it, like
the common denominator is you.
Yeah. So it's like, I hate to say it, but like, you just kind of have to go with the coach. Like, hey, what else do you need? We gave you all the weapons.
Right. Like, well, and that's the hard thing about. I think the reason, like, I'll say the reason that I love the game of football, especially college football, because I see, like, even with everything, NIL and all the money kind of coming into it, there's still this, like, I don't want to use the term purity, but just this, like, there still is a love for the game. There still is players who go to, they wanted to play for Ohio State their whole life. And so, this is like the dream, the tradition, the culture, you still have all that. And it's football. And you go out and you play these games. And sometimes you're Nick Saban, who happens to win just everything. And, you call the right play. But a play here and a play there, Nick Saban isn't Nick Saban. You know what I mean? And so that's the hard part is you look at these guys who come in and they do very well in an environment like Ohio State. Ryan Day is no slouch of a coach. The games that he has lost, a play here, a play there, he beats Clemson. A play here, a play there, he beats Georgia, and they go to the national championship against TCU. So it's just like one of those things that's hard. I hate it because he is a good coach. And it's football. And on any given Sunday, Saturday, Friday, Thursday, Monday, any day of the week, you can have those upsets, and Vandy can take down an Alabama. It just so happens that he's been on the wrong side of that a lot. So, but yeah, that's my hot seat. I'm getting really depressed talking about all this Ohio State stuff. So
we can move on. Hey, I'll say one hot seat we didn't really expect to the beginning of the year is Mike Norvell. That one is surprisingly warm. I mean, it's
not as warm as DJU's hot seat.
I feel like they might end up going out together, man.
Yeah. I think Mike Norvell will have another few years there before he's on an official hot seat, but you can tell the fan base.
If he only has one win for the rest of the season, I don't know if that will.
You think DJU and Mike Norvell are going to go out like the old people in The Notebook? They're just going to go into a room all day and die together.
FSU does the exact opposite of what they did last year. Yeah. Like I mean, at that point you have to. That kind of turnaround is ridiculous.
What do you
call that? It's not a turnaround. They're not turning anything around. They're like
about facing, going straight and winning.
They're about facing.
Went backwards.
True.
We won 1 year. We can go back now.
Yeah.
So before we move on, I think there was one more hot seat that I mentioned before we started. We went live. Is Mike Gundy? I mean for Oklahoma State, like again another OSU. Sorry, Luke.
About OSU's, man.
But man, talk about a team that has severely underperformed for what their expectations were for this year. They have looked terrible. They're a near Heisman winning running back from last year just has looked
Talk about Ohio State?
atrocious. Huh? No.
I feel like we still could be talking about Ohio State here.
No, we've moved on from Ohio State. We're on to Oklahoma State and Ollie Gordon. But
I'd make fun of you, Dennis, but
you
you're
have
too
to say
weak
the
to have a
name
team.
to recognize that. Otherwise, if you didn't say the name, like you kind of made it sound like Ohio State still.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so it's just one of those things. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with him. I have seen a lot of Oklahoma State fans really irate with the way that he's played, with his play calling and just his personnel choices for on the field. I mean, they don't look very good. Who knows what's going to happen this upcoming week? They've got they got a decently hard game ahead of them. So,
I mean, it's a big game. It shouldn't be. I mean, it should this is the way that they set themselves up this season. They shouldn't be in the situation they are.
Sure.
I mean, I'm gonna miss Gundy and Orange.
Yeah, that's true. And his mullet.
Mullet. Oh man,
so good. Anyway, so let's move on to our midseason Heisman picks.
Christopher's already saying Diego.
He's got Diego Pavia. That's an excellent pick. He's putting up crazy stats. No, it's the fact that he's putting up crazy wins.
Right.
If he's able to continue winning and wins the rest of Vanderbilt's schedule, just out of what he was able to produce, victory alone. I feel like, and there's a Heisman I actually personally just have been enjoying watching, but I'm like, I just got to give it to Diego at that point.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I don't know. I'm with you, Michael. I don't know that I don't know that you give him the Heisman, but if he's not there, if he's not taking pictures with everybody, if he wins out, he's got to win out. He's got to, because then you got Vanderbilt, in the top three or four, top 3 or 4 of the SEC. So
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah,
but I think.
What are you gonna say, Luke?
No, go for it.
No, I think again, Vandy's doing some amazing stuff as a team. Pavia is, as Samantha just said, Pavia is doing some solo winning of the games for sure. It's his energy that's bringing it out of the rest of his team, and you can also tell that Clark Lee is also doing a lot of that too.
They're a good combo. That's a good quarterback coach combo.
They really are. And so, yeah, I can't. He doesn't have the raw stats to win the Heisman, but he easily could be at least there, if not at some of the other awards at the end of the year.
Yep.
So, who else do you guys have for your mid-season Heisman picks?
I mean, we kind of talked about this. I think the frustrating thing to me about the Heisman is that it has become another quarterback award.
Unfortunately.
And that's not what the Heisman's supposed to be. That's supposed to be the best college football player. Should be able to be, a guy like, Ndamukong Suh back in the day when he just wrecked everything. It should be, you should be able to choose the guy who's the best. And the guy who is the best is Ashton Genty.
Yeah,
100%.
So good.
There is no. I'm recanting Jackson Dart from beginning of the season.
I'm
pulling that back. But he is doing things that have not been done since Barry Sanders. Speaking of Oklahoma State, Barry Sanders back in the day, his numbers are crazy. Somebody was posting a video of how he starts off his run. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah.
Most running backs are kind of down, and he's just literally standing up, just standing there, kind of looking around. And it's he is just the best guy. Yeah, he's playing behind a Boise State offensive line, which no disrespect to them, but it's not Georgia, it's not Alabama. So I've got Ashton Genty all the way, and I don't think that I don't think that he's going to have to lose it.
Sure.
He's going to have to lose it.
Sure. he's 100. Dennis is now back. Yeah. Chris, he tried to RIP you, but it's Dennis. I don't know who Dennis is. Yeah, the thing with Genty is, unfortunately, is he's the number one guy in the running for what has become, as you said, a quarterback award. Which it's not. It's the best player in college football. If he wasn't doing what he was doing right now, I think that there's a clear running back that also could be in that running, but he's just going to be overshadowed by Ashton Genty because Ashton Genty is just insane. Is Dylan Sampson of Tennessee right now has 15 touchdowns and stuff like that already on the season. He leads the SEC in rushing yards, so like, I mean, he's just one of those people that sits underneath, the radar because Tennessee's offense isn't on fire right now. And when
you got Nico, I'm just saying his name, Nico is going to pull that spotlight away from him a little bit.
Dennis is someone unrelated to this podcast, and you just mocked it. Well, we've been canceled. Great. It's good to know.
Not the first time.
Yeah.
Thanks for flooding our comments with Dennis related content, Christopher. But I also think another really good candidate, provided he gets back and is healthy, is Travis Hunter. As much as I dislike the dislike the way that Colorado is structured right now. Because I don't dislike Colorado, I just dislike the way that they're structured as a team right now. Because it's designed to prop up just a few players instead of actually like playing as a team. Right. Because this entire, like, they lost this past weekend, and all the news has just been about how Shiloh's ready to get back and look good again. He was just really upset about it. It's like, why is it always about the Sanders boys? But like Travis Hunter is arguably one of the best all around football players that I've seen ever play. Like
he's the only all around football player right now. Technically.
Well, yeah, he's really the only one right now. But like what I'm saying is he's the best one I've ever seen. Like out of all the ones that I've seen, because again, you don't usually see a really high ceiling for those guys because they're always exhausted, and because they're playing so many snaps, and he just doesn't seem to ever run out of gas, which is incredibly impressive. So, but
and we'll see. Like you said, he has to stay healthy and stay on the field and keep producing at a high level on both ends for that to happen. Because I don't think if you take him and you take him as a defensive player only, he's nowhere close to being in the Heisman running. If you take him as just an offensive player, he's nowhere near. So he's got to produce on both sides. And he's now that, we talked earlier about Colorado's getting into a little bit heavier part of their season. They're going to start having to play some harder teams. And this is where we're going to see if his stamina really kind of kicks in. As a player, I love him. I think he's one of my favorite players to watch. I like him as a person. I like him as a player. Like, I wish nothing but the best. We'll just have to see how he does the rest of the year.
Sure. Dennis, do you have any other Heisman pick for the?
No, I mean, I like just like how we said earlier. I actually was agreeing with the Genty as well. Hunter, I think he's a great pick. I feel like two things are going to hurt both of them, though. Other than the fact that Hunter is able to stay healthy, is the fact that if Colorado actually does continue to win, or they end up having a slide like they did last year, even if Hunter continues to perform the way he does, he's not going to win the Heisman. And for Genty, I've seen a lot of people kind of say, "Oh, hey, well, he doesn't play for a big conference and everything." And I'm not saying this to kind of attack Luke or anything like that, but I told him, like, hey, he ran over 200 yards on Oregon Ohio State as a team couldn't do that. And Ohio State has some great running backs in their backfield. So if you want to say, hey, drops the line or anything like that, it's just like
granted, his the level of competition to some degree is not always not like, and I get it, he played Oregon earlier, but they played Oregon when Oregon was still figuring things out. So
yes. But to still be able to perform average over 200 yards a game, regardless, you're at the end of the day, you're still playing against your team is still in that same conference. Your team is not like a Big Ten team playing a Mountain West team. You're still Mountain West surrounded by that kind of talent.
Well, and the thing for me about Genty is that averaging 200 yards a game, you are the focus of he has been the focus of every defense.
Sure.
Every defense goes in there saying, if we can stop him, we stop their offense. Or I'm sorry, every defense goes in saying that they need to stop him.
Yep.
And they can't. That's the thing that's amazing to me is that he is keyed on every single game and they can't stop him.
And the wild part is there's a lot of games where he actually just does not finish, doesn't play the last quarter. And I think in at least one game, he literally was out by halftime. So he doesn't even play the full game in majority of his games. So it's imagine if he played all 4 quarters or at least 3 quarters.
Exactly.
When it comes to those games, his numbers would probably averaging closer to 300 yards a game instead of 200.
Sure. Exactly. Well, let's move on to our week 8 game picks of the week. Dennis, do you want to go ahead and start us off there?
Yeah. So why not? So my game of the week is actually going to be Nebraska versus Indiana, and I think this is actually going to be so much is on the line with this game right here. The fact that both teams, or Nebraska only has one loss and one loss in the conference. They lost to Illinois, I believe, but that was actually Michael's game early in the year.
Sure.
And Indiana, I feel like with Signetti being able to kind of turn them around, they haven't had the toughest of schedules, but it's Indiana. Nobody has expected them to go 6-0, let alone be able to be mentioned for hey, the college football playoff run.
Yep.
And I feel like this being the case, the fact that if Indiana, I actually have Indiana winning. If Indiana actually ends up beating Nebraska, the only possible team I feel like they could actually, besides if they obviously get upset or lose, would be Ohio State. And if they were able to if they were to lose to Ohio State within 10 points, then I feel like, hey, they should be able to make it to the college football playoffs. Nebraska actually has a tougher, actually continues to have a schedule that they can actually, if they were to lose to India, or if they were to beat Indiana and then lose to one more other team, but they win out the rest of the year, they have a tougher schedule where they can actually still be able to argue, hey, no, we deserve a playoff spot. Yep. So this is kind of a deciding factor, I feel like, for both teams here, where Nebraska loses, they're like, hey, maybe good luck next year. This is actually not your year, but you improved a lot. Indiana, if they don't continue winning and just lose to one team, they don't have a spot. As much as me and Luke have loved Signetti back in JMU, and Michael hated him, didn't have no respect for him.
No respect. No respect at all.
All he does is win, man. I'm just
when he lost.
Go Google him. Go Google him. All he does is win.
All he does is win, man. And so maybe if Day ends up leading Ohio State, maybe Ohio State can kind of be able to take him out, take out Signetti. I feel like that could be a good pickup, though.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but
some of those JMU boys,
man, JMU, and see what's able to go on. But I do have Indiana just kind of pulling through. As we see here, Indiana is the favorite by here. But they're up 76% here in the ESPN. They're going in. They're actually a 5-point favorite. And to kind of make it a point too as well, Indiana has never scored less than 31 points in this season so far.
That's impressive.
I feel like it's going to be actually a high-scoring game.
Potentially.
I really think that both teams are probably get over 40 points probably, or very close to it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Nebraska does have some offensive weapons, so they can make it a game. So, Yeah, that
I'm
totally.
I'm looking forward to this game. I feel like it's not going to get as much attention, but I feel like it definitely has a lot there.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with
totally.
that.
Yep, totally get it. I guess I'll go next. My game of the week, because I was pressured into it. I'm just kidding. I originally wasn't going to pick this, but I decided to go with the Alabama-Tennessee game. I didn't want to go with it just because of the fact that Tennessee's offense has not looked great the past couple weeks, and I didn't really want to give them too much of a spotlight until I saw them actually get into groove. But the other gents here decided to make some good points as to why I should include them in my, and me not only just being a Tennessee fan, but there's some interesting things about this matchup that
My
really
point was you better pick it or I'm going to punch you in the face.
that's true. He was going to nail me a punch. I don't know how that works, but anyways, but again, you got Tennessee. That the opening line is originally was 1.5. I think it's still 1.5 or 2, -2 for Alabama. ESPN bet has it at -3. And again, honestly, it's such a pick 'em game. Who knows? Like it just they're both teams are not. Neither team are running at both at operating at full steam, and it clearly shows. I can confidently say this is probably going to be the hardest defense that Alabama's faced all year, but it might also be the easiest offense they've faced all year. I don't know. Like it just depends on what Tennessee decides to bring out. The benefit that Tennessee has is they're playing at Neyland. Christopher is very confident right now that Milroe is going to get sacked 5 times. Tennessee wins 35-14.
That would be huge. Like,
if that Christopher, if it's that score, Tennessee wins 35-14. If it's 35-14 or greater, I will ship you one of those chicken burritos. He trust me, he'll still eat it. But I think the thing is with this, as I was saying before, this is probably the worst Alabama defense Tennessee's played in 20 years. It's the fourth worst ranked defense in the SEC right now, which is pretty incredibly bad.
Christopher though would probably be right though. If Tennessee is to win, that would probably go down to 8. Tennessee would be 9.
That's probably right. Yeah, it'll be like 22 when they're like, oh yeah, we can't put Bama behind Tennessee, even though Tennessee beat them. But I just think this game again, it really just depends on which team shows up on both sides, Alabama or Tennessee. If Alabama from the past 2 weeks shows up thinking they're just gonna out talent Tennessee, then they're gonna lose. But if Alabama from the first half of the Georgia game shows up, then they're gonna have some fun with Tennessee because Tennessee will be having to play catch up. One of the things that I heard was Alabama. I think it was an Alabama offensive lineman who was talking about the win over South Carolina, and he was asked about the locker room after that game, and he goes, "Well, we're just being encouraged to just treat every game like it's our first win. Like it's just it doesn't matter how much we won by or anything." And I'm like, that sounds like Butch Jones. So that's great for Tennessee because that's terrible coaching. Like, I saw that the amount of comments from Bama fans going, "Oh, we're gonna lose." I don't feel confident about this game, but I do pick Tennessee to win. I don't pick it by much. I honestly one point or a safety. Who knows? I only give Tennessee the edge because it's at Tennessee, and DeBoer will have not faced a crowd like this yet this year. So that's my game of the week.
Well, guess that means that I'm next.
That means you're next.
I picked the Texas Georgia game, or I guess it's Georgia Texas since it's in Texas. However you want to word that. I think this is going to be interesting. You know, you've got Georgia, who it honestly is kind of looking down, in my opinion. I know that they're still ranked 5, but again, it's one of those, I don't see them as a 5th ranked team. They just don't. They just don't look like a Georgia that we're used to seeing.
Sure.
Texas, on the other hand, really is kind of rolling. Ewers came back from his whatever injury he had. I can't remember, like spleen or ab. It was like an ab injury or something.
Injury.
Yeah. And you know, he had some rust, and you could kind of see it when he came back, and it seems to be gone. Like that rust got shaken off pretty quick. He looked really good this past week. So I'm not expecting this to be a very close game. I think that the matchup predictor has Texas a 76% favorite, and I think the spread is like 3.5. So essentially, they're saying that the home field advantage is all that Texas needs to win. And I disagree with that. I think this is regardless of where they played, Texas was going to pull this one out. I would just say that I think that Texas needs to make sure that their quarterbacks don't go to the sideline near Kirby because he's going to push them. And they just need to stay away from him. You know, he's dangerous over there on that sideline.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. I mean, they could ask Mississippi State.
Yeah, ask him about it. But yeah, Christopher, Texas wins 42-7.
I mean,
I would be happy with that.
I wouldn't be surprised. I would be happy. I don't know that I'm putting money on that.
Sure.
But I mean, maybe 42-21.
Like,
this is Christopher's
back breaks a nail.
He's not Cam Rising now. Relax.
Yeah, no. Yeah. I got a hang nail.
Oh no. Oh man. Well,
you did for Florida State.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what happened. He's like, man, it broke my hand. It wasn't just a nail.
See, and what's fun for me now, you know, we talked about this a couple weeks ago where it seems like every week, like I literally was looking at this week and I'm like, okay, we got Georgia, Texas. We got, you know, there's some good games, but I was going, there's not really, like, this isn't really a big football week. And then I remembered how every week we've said that Vandy beats Alabama, or like there's always something. So now I'm sitting here looking at it totally different, going, okay, where are these upsets going to be?
There's a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities. So it's going to be fun.
No, it's going to be a great weekend of football. I'm looking forward to it. And next weekend might be just as good. Who knows?
Well, hopefully Georgia beats up Texas a little bit so that Vanderbilt's win next week is a little easier.
Yeah, exactly. Because
you're playing in Nashville, man.
Yeah. Are they playing in that? Oh my goodness. Perfect storm.
So
Vandy's going to be.
He had to correct his record. So his real call is Texas wins 24-17. Okay.
Gotcha. So you were dyslexic on the first number and missed his number on the second one.
Yeah, he's just being more conservative right now. So which I get, you know,
that makes
you want to show a little respect to Georgia because Tennessee hasn't played Georgia yet. So you still want to show a little respect to just a little. Exactly. Well, again,
as much respect as Georgia shows the speed limit signs.
Yeah, or opposing players on their sidelines.
Right.
Anyways, well,
sorry,
again, thanks again for joining tonight's tailgate. Come back next week, grab a drink, and join the conversation.